The boardroom was burning, metaphorically and almost literally. Whispers of fraud. Stocks crashing. A billionaire cornered by betrayal. But just when Daniel Sterling was about to lose everything, a poor cleaning lady stepped from the shadows, with a secret that could destroy or save it all. The wind howled outside Sterling Towers like a warning. Glass trembled in its frame. Inside, the glossy marble lobby gleamed under the cold fluorescence, spotless, sterile, silent. A man in a navy trench coat stormed past the front desk, phone pressed to his ear. "Tell legal I want names now," he barked. His voice echoed sharply through the empty space. Elena Morales kept her eyes down. Mop in hand, she was crouched near the fountain, scrubbing away the faint edge of a boot scuff. It didn't matter who yelled or why, not to her. Not anymore. From her corner, she watched Daniel Sterling stride toward the elevator. Face hard, jaw clenched, eyes like steel. The billionaire looked like he hadn't slept in days. His suit was sharp, but his tie was slightly crooked. The kind of detail only someone like Elena would notice. He didn't look at her. He never did. But tonight he paused. Just a second. His eyes flicked toward her, then away. A breath caught in his chest. But he said nothing, and the elevator doors swallowed him whole. Upstairs, chaos brewed. Elena could feel it through the floor. The tension, the pacing, the quiet fury of power unraveling. She rinsed the mop, slower than usual, glancing once at the darkened ceiling above. She didn't smile, but something in her eyes shifted. A flicker of curiosity, a flicker of recognition. She had seen empires rise and fall from behind her mop. But this man, he was different, and he was about to need her more than he could ever imagine. By day, Sterling Towers glistened with the pride of privilege, polished chrome, tailored suits, hushed elevators. But at night, when the lights dimmed and the halls emptied, it belonged to people like Elena. She arrived at 7:45 p.m. sharp, same as always. Her janitor cart rolled softly across the tile. The building's hum was familiar, air vents sighing, distant clinks of glass being washed on the executive floor, the low buzz of fluorescent lights that never quite slept. Elena greeted the security guard with a quiet nod. "Evening, Mrs. Morales," he said with a kind smile. "Elena's fine," she replied gently, tightening her gloves. "How's your little girl?" "She's walking now," he grinned. "Tried to chase the cat yesterday." Elena chuckled, the sound warm but brief. "Good. Keep holding on to the small things." The elevator dinged. Daniel Sterling stepped out, alone this time. His eyes were shadowed, phone tucked in his breast pocket for once. His posture was still proud, but something had softened, barely. A heaviness in his shoulders, a man carrying the weight of too many decisions. Their eyes met. Just for a second, he gave the smallest nod. Not a greeting, not exactly, but something, an acknowledgement. The kind rich men rarely offered to people in uniforms. And then he walked past. Elena watched him go. Watched the man who once crushed her father's steel business under his billion-dollar acquisition machine. Though he didn't know. Not yet. She swallowed the bitterness. It had become a familiar taste. Tonight wasn't about the past. It was about what she saw in his face, a crack. He was losing control. And Elena knew. When men like Daniel Sterling begin to fall, they grab for anything to stop the descent. Even the people they once ignored. In the reflection of the marble floor, two figures passed each other in silence. One fading in power, the other stepping into light. Rain lashed the glass walls high above Midtown. The boardroom lights flickered faintly, as if even the bulbs were anxious. Daniel Sterling stood at the head of a long glass table, surrounded by silence, broken only by the occasional cough or the tapping of fingers on polished wood. One of the board members finally spoke. "Your silence isn't helping, Daniel." He didn't answer. His gaze was locked on a leaked news headline on the screen behind them. Sterling Steel implodes. Whispers of embezzlement. Executive exodus begins. Another voice, sharper. 20% drop in 3 days. We can't protect you much longer. Daniel clenched his fist under the table. He had built this empire from his father's ashes. He had turned a dying company into a global force. And now Now they looked at him like he was the problem, like he was replaceable. He didn't notice that downstairs, the woman with the mop was watching the screen too, through a glass wall outside the media lounge, where someone had forgotten to turn off the business channel. Elena's brows furrowed. The numbers didn't add up. Not for a company that should have weathered worse storms. Something wasn't right. Later that night, it happened. The elevator jerked to a stop between floors. Daniel, alone and exhausted, cursed under his breath. A soft voice startled him from the shadows of the cramped space. Don't panic. Maintenance probably tripped again. He turned. Elena stood in the corner, holding her cleaning caddy like a shield. Her face was calm, even amused. You? Daniel asked, blinking. You, she replied dryly. He chuckled once, short, breathless. Of all the nights. They stood in silence. The elevator groaned again. After a beat, she said, I saw the stock line this morning. He glanced at her. Not exactly a topic I discuss with staff. She didn't flinch. Then maybe that's part of the problem. His eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? She didn't answer right away. Just reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded napkin, covered in numbers, scribbles, red ink. I clean your offices. You leave papers out. Numbers don't lie. People do. Daniel stared at the napkin like it was a loaded weapon. She continued, quietly. Someone's draining your accounts. Not from outside. From the top floor. His breath caught. The air in the elevator felt thinner now. How do you know all this? He whispered. Elena met his eyes. Because I've been invisible long enough to see everything. And just like that, the first crack in Daniel Sterling's pride began to widen. But what he didn't know yet, what she didn't tell him, was that this wasn't just business. This was personal. The elevator finally creaked back to life and opened to an empty hallway, dimly lit and hushed after hours. Daniel stepped out first, hesitating only slightly before turning to Elena. Come with me, he said. She blinked, surprised. Excuse me. You said someone's stealing from me. Prove it. His tone was clipped, but not cold. More like a man out of moves, gambling with his last chip. Elena hesitated. I'm not part of your world, Mr. Sterling. He looked at her, really looked this time. That's exactly why I need you. In his corner office, the city blinked behind them, lights stretching into the darkness like a pulse. On his desk, papers lay in disarray. A screen displayed a maze of numbers, fund movements, subsidiary reports, internal budgets. Daniel gestured toward it all. Have at it. Elena didn't sit. She leaned in, scanning with the calm of someone used to finding truth in chaos. Her fingers hovered over a page, then another, then stopped. This here. She pointed at a string of minor wire transfers. These accounts don't match standard vendor patterns. They're laundering. Quiet, clever, but too frequent to be clean. Daniel leaned in, eyebrows drawn. How the hell did I miss that? You didn't miss it. Someone made sure you wouldn't see it. She paused. You trust your people too much. He scoffed bitterly. I trusted my nephew. My father's legacy. I thought that was enough. Elena looked at him, something unreadable in her eyes. Legacy isn't trust. It's memory. People lie even to blood. There was silence between them. Not uncomfortable, but dense. Two people standing at the edge of a truth too heavy for either to carry alone. Then Daniel asked softly, Who are you really? Elena smiled faintly, but her voice stayed steady. Just someone who's been cleaning up other people's messes for a long time. He didn't push. Not yet. But something in him shifted. Not fully trust, but curiosity, maybe even respect. As they worked, hour after hour, a strange rhythm began. She pointed, he cross-checked. She questioned, he followed. They moved like two halves of a lock, finally clicking into place. But beneath her calm, Elena's chest tightened with every file. Because with every transfer, every hidden account, she came closer to the truth she'd already guessed. The person bleeding sterling steel dry wasn't a stranger. It was someone Daniel loved. And someone Elena had watched from the shadows for years. For the first time in a long while, Daniel looked like a man who wanted help. But soon he'd have to face a truth no billionaire could fix with money. The sun was rising now, casting long golden streaks across the floor of Daniel's office. The city outside slowly came alive, but inside, the silence was thick. They hadn't stopped working. Daniel leaned over the desk, dark circles under his eyes, studying a series of transactions Elena had flagged. His hands were shaking slightly. His voice, when he spoke, was lower. Not tired, haunted. This account was used for the Rivergate acquisition 7 years ago. He looked up slowly. That company went under almost overnight. Elena didn't answer. She was already staring at that name. Rivergate Forge, printed in sharp black letters on an old invoice. Her throat tightened. Her fingers gripped the edge of the desk. Daniel kept going, unaware of the storm he was walking into. I remember this one. We absorbed it fast. Too fast. The owner didn't even fight. He gave a bitter half-laugh. We never even learned his name. Elena whispered. His name was Rafael Morales. Silence. Daniel blinked. What? She lifted her eyes. And for the first time, he saw everything behind them. Grief, restraint, but also steel. My father, she said quietly. He built that company from nothing. Your lawyers shredded him in court. He died 6 months later. Heart attack. Daniel's face went pale. I didn't know. I didn't. He stopped. The words collapsed before they left his mouth. Elena didn't cry. She didn't raise her voice. I was supposed to be in college. I stayed. Got a job. Any job. Eventually, I got here. Daniel sat back slowly, like someone absorbing a blow to the chest. I didn't mean to destroy your life, he said, more to himself than to her. You didn't, she said, and her voice didn't shake. You destroyed his. I just had to survive what was left. The room was heavy now, but not with anger, with truth. Raw and unfiltered. Daniel rubbed his face, ashamed. Why didn't you ever say anything? She looked at him. Would you have listened? That landed. He nodded slowly. No, I wouldn't have. A long silence passed between them. Then Elena stood. I didn't come here for revenge, Mr. Sterling. I stayed because something's wrong in your house. And your people? They don't see it. Or they don't care. Her eyes softened, just barely. But I think you do. Daniel looked up at her, his voice barely a whisper. Help me fix it. And in that moment, the power shifted, not in title, not in wealth, but in truth. For the first time, Daniel was not the man holding the answers. And Elena was no longer the woman who cleaned his floors. She was the only one holding the pieces of his shattered legacy. Rain drizzled down the tall windows again, softer this time, like the building itself was holding its breath. Elena sat in a corner of the office now, laptop open, her fingers moving with quiet purpose. Files unfolded one by one, layers peeled back. Daniel stood behind her, arms crossed tightly, saying nothing. The guilt from the night before hadn't left his face. It clung to him like fog. Here, she said, turning the screen toward him. This is the funnel account. Everything disappears through this name, Elias Sterling. Daniel flinched. My nephew, he muttered. He oversees digital security. I gave him full proxy access last year. His jaw clenched. I thought I was giving him a legacy. Elena's voice was firm, but calm. He's been laundering your money for over 8 months. Shell companies, fake suppliers, all buried under your trust. Daniel looked stunned, then furious, then deeply sad. He's my brother's kid. After the accident, I raised him. I thought. He stopped himself, voice cracking. I thought he was the last good part of this family. Elena stood. She didn't touch him, but her presence was steady. Sometimes the people closest to us do the most damage, because they know exactly where to cut. He nodded, slowly. A man drowning in the weight of betrayal. We confront him, he said, breath shallow. Publicly. The board needs to see it. No, Elena replied. You do nothing. I'll do it. Daniel stared at her, confused. Why you? Because they won't see it coming. She picked up the folder filled with evidence. Let the cleaning lady be the one who exposes the filth. Later that afternoon, the boardroom was full. Men and women in tailored suits sat stiffly around the table, murmuring in low tones. At the head sat Elias, young, charming, polished, his smile just a little too calm. Daniel stood silently at the window. Then the door opened and Elena stepped inside. There was confusion at first, then offense. One man scoffed audibly. "Is this a joke?" Daniel turned, face like stone. "No joke. She's here on my authority." Elias looked amused. "She's the janitor, uncle." "No," Daniel said. "She's the one who saved my company." Elena stepped forward and placed the folder on the table. "In here," she said, her voice clear and unwavering, "you'll find direct evidence of fraud, laundering, and internal theft, traced to Elias Sterling." The room exploded. Elias's face dropped, blood draining. "You're insane." But the papers were already in motion. The CFO flipped through the files, his eyes wide. Others followed. Gasps, curses, disbelief. Elena stood still. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just stood tall, like someone who finally stepped out of the shadows. Daniel looked at her, eyes shining with something more than gratitude. Respect. And when Elias was escorted out in silence, no one noticed Elena quietly whisper, "Your name opened the door. Your greed closed it." The empire had been poisoned from the inside. And it wasn't a billionaire who stopped the collapse. It was a woman no one saw coming. 2 weeks later, Sterling Towers was quieter. Not empty, just humbler. The sharp clicks of designer heels had softened. The air didn't carry the same arrogance. In the executive wing, Daniel Sterling stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, arms folded, eyes distant. But this time, he wasn't thinking about losses or headlines. He was watching the lobby below, where a woman in a faded blue uniform wiped down the front desk with care. He picked up his phone and pressed a button. "Send her up." Elena stepped into the office slowly. She didn't wear gloves today. Her hands were clean, but not empty. They held a manila folder, thin and practical. Daniel offered her a chair. She didn't sit. "I wanted to thank you," he said. She raised an eyebrow dry. "You already did. With a fruit basket." He chuckled. "Right. But I'm not done." He slid a slim contract across the desk. Consulting position. Real salary. Health insurance. Full access. She stared at it. "You want me to work with you?" "I want you in the room, where people like you usually aren't allowed." Elena didn't answer right away. She walked to the window, looking out, not up at the sky, but down. At the lobby where she had mopped floors, vanished into corners gone unheard for years. "Only if I can bring others in," she said. "Ones like me, who've been kept outside the glass." Daniel nodded. "Done." She turned back. "Then I'm in." For the first time, Daniel stood and extended his hand. Not as a billionaire, not as her boss, but as a man who had finally learned what legacy really meant. Elena shook it. Firm, unshaking. As she left the office, the staff didn't look through her anymore. They greeted her. They smiled. Someone even held the elevator. She smiled back just a little, because she hadn't just helped save an empire. She had rewritten what it stood for.